always remember when I did not understand how I used to stand under all the fool's rules running these lands. I had my head in the sand and I was asleep. Now I learn a little more every day, and I'm waking the sheep. Gonna say it out loud, say it proud, get it out, 'cause I'm burning inside, cannot hide it no more. I'm a raconteur too. Yeah, I'm a raconteur too. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. Oh, the people in the chat room singing. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. One more time now. Oh, I'm a raconteur too.
I'm your host, Aid Hardy, otherwise known as Captain Cliche, here to remind you that this world belongs to all of us, not just the chosen few. If you're listening on YouTube or a podcast, you can catch me live on Mondays, 7 till 9 p.m. UK time at raconteursnews.com, where all the previous shows are all available as podcasts. If you're listening live tonight, join me in the chat room with any questions or comments for the guest, or me, in fact. The guest tonight, a chap called Michael Ough. Good evening, Michael.
Good evening, Aid.
Understand you're based down in Plymouth.
Yeah.
And
that's me, Devon.
Yeah. And you were actually on Raconteurs News with Andy Young back in January 2016.
Yeah, doesn't seem it. Yeah, doesn't seem it at all.
Now, Mike, all I know, other than you've been helping me with a family member's legal case over the past few days, I know very little about you. I know that you were in the Metropolitan Police for a very short time, and then moved on to the Ministry of Defence Police. But for everybody listening, just give us a bit of a background to Michael Ough.
Right, well, I went to the Metropolitan Police, got fed up with London, so I left and joined the Ministry of Defence Police, where I spent most of the police career. Then in '87, I was involved in an accident, which resulted in my knee being badly injured, so that was the end of my police career. Worked in printing and publishing for a short time, and then had to take a break because of my health again. And then I went to work in community transport, where I was working with people with disabilities, either temporarily or permanent. Then my health did a number on me again, and I'm recovering from that. What that was proving to be, what's caused quite a few of my health problems, is something called celiac disease, which is something that apparently I've had for a long, long time, but they didn't spot it. It is notoriously difficult to try and identify, so, yeah.
Excuse me.
But, if anybody out there is listening and has got celiac disease, they know exactly what I mean about celiac. It can be nasty.
Yeah, it's not something I'm particularly aware of, but hope you managed to, I would say, from what I do know about it, learn to cope with it, which is, I believe, what you can basically do.
Funnily enough, yes, if you stick to the gluten-free diet, and what can also help is taking magnesium, up your intake of magnesium, because that can help a great deal. Although they said you get the big pharma and doctors say, oh, take calcium. No, you actually need magnesium, because you need magnesium for your bones. You also need magnesium for your body processes. Too much calcium can actually be very bad for you. You need calcium for your teeth, actually.
Right, okay. Very interesting, right. When you were back, if we go back to January 2016, when you were on Raconteurs News, I know there was a few things that you discussed that that you may or may not be able to give us any updates on. Is anything...
I can't. Funnily enough, I've had so much happening in the intervening period, it's very difficult to remember, because there's been so much going on in between then and now. I mean, I've had a number of things happening. I mean, I've been helping somebody with a mortgage case. The insights I've had into the way that people are being deceived over their mortgages is unbelievable. I've also seen the corruption that's going on, the corruption of the court system, the fraud being committed by banks, the fraud being committed by so-called lenders, and the way they're doing it, and it's now so blatant. I've also heard people saying, with these so-called terrorist attacks in inverted commas, they're false flags. They're now making mistakes, which everyone is noticing. I mean, when I was a policeman, you would notice how criminals, they make slight mistakes which nobody noticed. Then they start making mistakes which a few people noticed. Then they start making bigger mistakes which quite a few people notice, and then they make one almighty mistake which everybody would notice, and it was normally after that they get caught. And it's got to the stage where everybody's noticing what's going on, and it's only going to be a matter of time. It's not going to be if, it's more a case of when they're going to get caught. Yeah, and that's the point we're at now.
About a year ago, I hardly watch any TV at all, and I had a case with. Excuse me, my phone's ringing. I had a case with. I was just happened to be watching. There was the adverts on, and it was for a mortgage lender, and it said, we'll lend you the money. So I thought, here we go. Gets me typing fingers on, and I'm not a very good typist, but shoots off a complaint email to the advertising standards. And I said, they're not lending anything; they're just facilitating credit. So this advert should not be allowed. And I got a letter back basically saying, yeah, but it's within the spirit of it, who cares? And that was their answer.
I'm absolutely astounded at that, because if they are allowing blatantly fraudulent advertising, then the ASA should be closed down. Yeah. Because what I found, there is an EU directive called EU 2006/48/ECEU. Now, that basically requires that a lender or a mortgagee must indemnify the mortgagor or borrower against any default. Now, that's normally done through an insurance policy costing about £400 called the mortgage indemnity policy. Now, if the borrower is in default of their mortgage payments for 90 consecutive days, then the lender can then claim on that, and that discharges the mortgage. But what they're doing is they're claiming on that, discharging the mortgage, but then they're going into court, waving around a now invalid mortgage contract, saying, "Oh, I'm owed money. Oh, I want possession." They are committing fraud on two counts. They're committing fraud against the insurer, and they're also committing fraud against the borrower.
Yeah.
And some call it fraud on the court. I don't. I call it abuse of the legal process, and possibly it's also perverting the course of justice as well.
Yeah.
But more likely abuse of the legal process. Now, there are some cases where the solicitors balls up completely. I've come across such cases, and when you try to pin them down, they try every way they can to wriggle out of it. And the more they wriggle, the more they kind of deeper the hole they dig for themselves. When it goes to the SRA, the SRA take one look and go, "Oh, SH1T."
Yeah. I was, for anybody who's regular listener to Raconteurs Too, I was a financial advisor for over 20 years. And even then I knew there was something wrong. So this mortgage indemnity policy, and to indemnify literally means to make good. That's what the word means. It means to make good. So like you said, the idea is that if the mortgage holder can't pay or doesn't pay, then the people who supposedly lent the money, but we know that they're really just facilitating credit, can claim on that policy. And you're quite right, they do that, and you're quite right, it does then discharge the debt, if ever there really was one. But it does discharge the debt if you believe in their paperwork process. And as I say, for somebody who did it for 20 years, I don't believe in their paperwork process. It's complete and utter balls, it really is. And you're right, they do go into court and they do wave it around. And we were basically always told the customer cannot have a mortgage without an indemnity policy. You can't have it. So if you think PPI was corrupt, then the mortgage indemnity policy is 10 times as bad.
Yeah, they've also found out there's a problem with the actual mortgage itself. When they sign the mortgage deed, they're getting them to sign it. What the conveyancers are doing is they're getting them to sign the document, but not date it. And
Yeah, that's right.
Right, now the thing is that's actually illegal. And what because you can't. There's a piece of case law, Scott versus Southern Pacific Mortgages 2014. That is a Supreme Court ruling, and basically what it says is if you don't own something, you cannot give a mortgage on it, and you don't actually become the registered proprietor of a property until something like about 3 months after you complete the mortgage.
Yeah.
So the land registry are in on this, and as soon as you challenge them, they go the sort of piece of tinfoil armour, and you're thinking, why are they being so defensive? They've allowed this to go through. They've allowed a charge to be put on a property that wasn't the borrower's until so no. They go into they kind of bury their heads in the sand and then go into and get the government legal service to go into denial. It sounds like my next door neighbour is trying to demolish the dividing wall. But no, it is the biggest scam around, and the bankers and other scamsters are beginning to realise people have worked out what's going on, yet they still go on denying it, trying to shore up the dike before the dike just completely gives way and that whole floodgates open.
Oh yeah, and it will come. It will come.
Oh, it's going to come. I think the thing is, I think it could be sooner rather than later, because the speed with which people are waking up to what's going on, it's incredible. I can see it happening a lot quicker than a lot of people think.
So have you been helping people with this who've been in trouble with a mortgage?
I have been helping people, and there is also scamming on the High Court. What they do is the mortgagee will try and get the possession in the county court. If you look at the County Courts Act, you can only get, and also you can only get it in the county court. If you're inside Greater London, you've got to go to you cannot go to the High Court. You can only go to the High Court at the Royal Courts of Justice. If you're outside, it's only the county court can deal with it. But what they're doing, what we found they're doing, is in one case it was in Eastern England, but they went down to the Royal Courts of Justice. You're not allowed to do that. So the only ones can do that are ones in the Greater London area and the Central London County Court. Now Croydon, believe it or not, although it's a London borough, it is a district registry of the county court. If you're outside London, you have to go to the nearest registry of the Queen's Bench Division of the High Court. Now, there's one case in Derbyshire where the possession was gained in Manchester, supposed to be at the nearest county court, but they transferred it in Oxford. Now, there is a rule that says and it's enshrined in law, you must tell the mortgagor so they can apply, or anybody else, so they can apply for any relief to which they're entitled. And what they're doing is they're doing this to deny them that right to seek relief. So
the purpose of going as far away as they can just to make
that's
sure.
Right. And they're not even telling them. So basically, they're acting unlawfully. There was the one in Derbyshire. There was a bull-headed EA, an enforcement agent. I won't mention his name because I think the case is still going. There's still ongoing litigation about it. But he was trying to say, "Oh no, this is my writ." And when you looked at it, you could see it was a photocopy. You're not allowed to use photocopies. You've got to use
of course, yeah.
You've got to use you can have a photocopy, but the stamp on it must be a genuine High Court stamp. If you've got a photocopy of the writ and that stamp is photocopied as well, that's a forgery as far as the law's concerned, and you will get nicked.
So,
police, unfortunately, are not trained to determine whether these are forgeries or valid or not. They only deal with criminal warrants and orders. Yeah, they're trained in those. Civil, they're not. They're told to accept them, whatever. My answer to them is don't, because you're going to get yourself into serious trouble. You could end up in jail. You could even lose lose your job and your pension. So is it really worth it? I think, as we've seen with the copper who was PSNI, but Police Service in Northern Ireland, who tried to arrest a judge, pity he didn't. It can affect police officers as well. I think that was a big wake-up call to the police service. Yeah, you as well are 3 payments away from eviction.
That's right. Yeah. Everybody is. 3 payments of your mortgage missed, and all of a sudden, you're out there with the likes of Tom Crawford and all the other good people that are busy fighting for this. And I mean, using Tom as an example, as I understand it, Tom had actually got to the end of his mortgage.
Oh yeah, they'll steal anything. There was one firm was caught trying to engineer defaults. By what they were doing is they were loading the mortgage account with illegal, unfair and excessive charges. They got caught, and the old FSI then fined them £900,000. But because they settled within 30 days, they only paid £630,000.
Yeah, that was the cop was Anthony Carling, the Irish cop. Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah. I know I've mentioned this on Raconteurs Too before. What happens is the banks end up fractional reserve lending so much they end up with almost zero asset because they're lending what doesn't exist. Right. And then the ombudsman or the FSA will come along and say, hang on a minute, you can't operate like that. You've got to get yourself some assets. So what do? They go and repossess some houses that they never possessed in the first place.
And they're not entitled to possess because...
And they're not entitled to possess.
No.
So it is just one big scam. And of course, it's not just houses, it's commercial mortgage as well that they do this with. Because, if you repossess, even though you never possessed it in the first place, a home worth £300,000, or you claim back a factory that's worth £1 million, well, that's basically what they're doing.
Yeah, you see, they got caught like this with small business loans some years ago. What they were doing is they were asset stripping the businesses and making as much money out as they can. Now they're doing it with mortgagors. Sorry. What they're doing is fire selling their homes below the market value, which is a breach of fiduciary duty.
That's right.
And it's a form of fraud. And then what they're doing is they're trying to go after the mortgagor for the shortfall. Well, it's the bank's own fault. In fact, it's not. They're committing fraud again. Then apparently they're doing it because they make more profits. Well, if you ask me, their ill-gotten gains should be taken off them. Yeah. And also, the directors of these banks should have sequestration orders slapped on them, so it takes not only the bank's assets but also their assets, personal assets as well.
Yeah. You see what we found they were doing, and this again goes back to when I was a IFA, independent financial advisor. After that, I was working for a company who were selling all the equipment for the rock and roll industry, all the huge big speaker systems and stuff like that. And it's a cottage industry, tiny cottage industry. And what you'd often find was the banks, because these little companies who were providing the sound systems and all the rest of it, they do have a bit of a cash flow issue. So what they'll do, they'll come to them and they'll say, and even the company that I worked for, selling the equipment, the bank will come along and say, you've got a bit of a cash flow problem. So what we'll do, we'll sell you this system, which is factoring invoices. Now, factoring invoices, in dead simple terms, is you produce an invoice for £1,000. You're not going to get paid on it for 30, 60 or 90 days. But if you give it to the bank, we'll give you 90% of that today.
Yeah, I'll come across.
The problem with that is what you end up with companies doing is they'll raise invoices that don't exist to try and keep afloat. And before you know it, you've got the bank that effectively own the bloody company anyway. They strip out all the asset, they reclaim the building, and away they go. And they just gain everything.
Yeah, it's going to have to be ideally what we need is we need something like a sheriff's service like they've got in America, where the sheriff is separate from the police and In some cases, they oversee the police.
Yes.
But what we need in this country is something that can oversee the court system as well. And if they do notice that they can see judicial malfeasance going on, they can intervene, and if necessary, they can pull a judge out and say, right, you've got some questions to answer, mister, or what's going on.
A word you just mentioned there, Mike, misfeasance. It's one that you and I have been discussing over the past couple of days. Just expand on that for everybody listening.
Very simply, misfeasance is a civil tort. It's where a public servant is, their conduct is such that it's malicious, or it's so bad that it destroys the public's trust in that person or in their office. They normally get dealt with by the Queen's Bench Division of the High Court. It can't be heard in one of the lower courts. It's got to be heard before a judge in the High Courts, before a High Court judge. If they have a judgment of misfeasance in public office made against them, that is the end of their career completely. Not only that, if they try to go and get another paid job, there is a song I can remember, "Ain't no mountain high enough." Well, it's a kind of a case of ain't no barge pole long enough. Nobody will touch them. They are virtually sort of condemned to a lifetime of unemployment because it is that serious. I mean, misconduct in public office, that's a criminal matter, but that's something completely different.
Right. So what's the difference between the two?
Well, misfeasance is where you've basically not complied with the duties of your office, and it's called loss or harm to someone, but not in a criminal sense.
Right.
Misconduct in public office is where you use it for either financial gain or for some criminal purpose. Now, one prime example is the Billy Dowler case, where there was hacking of her phone. Now, that is a criminal offence, and there were police officers and some other public servants. They were involved in that, and yes, that is misconduct whilst in the public office because they did it whilst in their whilst in the discharge of their duties, which is also misfeasance. But misfeasance is basically means misbehaviour or misconduct. But the two in legal terms are slightly different. One there's criminality involved. Well, the other one, it's more like failure to carry out something or being malicious, being spiteful, basically. So
if we found ourselves in a position where we'd got a bailiff and some police officers trying to gain entry, and the bailiff had got an unlawful document he was trying to execute because it was a photocopy, and like I've done a few times for people, mostly my kids, who are now adult, I might point out, they get the bailiffs on the door. I explain to the police, look, this document's fraudulent. It's not even got the name of the person living at this property, so, you need to stand down and bugger off, basically. If they continue with that, would we say to them, did you know that misconduct, or did you know that misfeasance was in a public office is a serious offence? Which one would we use?
You wouldn't. If it's a police officer, you use Section 26 of the Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015, which is improper exercise of police powers and privileges.
Right.
Now, the number of police officers who have been shown that so far, their jaws have dropped on reading subsection 2, or they've had, how can I put it, a sort of a digestive sort of malfunction.
You mean they've shit themselves? Yeah.
They do. They absolutely shit themselves because subsection 2 of section 26 is the penalty it prescribes. It's up to 14 years in prison, which means it's an inevitable only offence. That means they're going straight in front of a Crown Court judge, or wig gang, the lot.
Right.
It was brought in because there was so much sort of misconduct by police officers. It was getting to the point. That's the only good thing that Theresa May has actually done. Police corruption and police misconduct was getting so bad that the only way to do it was to actually criminalise the police conduct regulations. They were just getting away with it. Now you've got that as a sort of a standby. If it does get too bad, you can say, right, Section 26. But where we, as members of the public, have got an advantage, Section 24A PACE allows us, as individuals, if we know they are committing an indictable offence, which is what Section 26 is, we can arrest them. If they say, "Oh, you can't arrest me, I've got privileges," the answer is no, you're misusing them, you're nicked.
Yeah, well, so a few weeks ago I threatened to arrest a bailiff, and I explained to the police that if they hindered me, I'd be arresting them as well, and they all buggered off. They just left. And that was without me mentioning Section 26. So they are aware. They do know. And like you say, I think a few of them have had this shoved up their nose and have choked a little bit.
Yeah, I was just looking in the chat box. Somebody's asked Section 26. Is Section 26 Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015? You go to legislation.gov.uk and just put that in. Yeah, you've got the full whack there, but Section 26 is there in all its glory.
Worth printing off and keeping in your glove box, I think.
Yes, it is, because laminate it if you want to, or if you want to print off copies, I mean, just hand it through the window to them and say, "Here you go, here's a personal copy. Go and pen it up on the notice board back at the nick." They'll say, "Oh," well, some will say, "Oh, that's only activists and protesters say that." They say, "Well, actually, it does exist, and here it is." It's when they see the 14 years imprisonment, they kind of just go, just get back in their car and off they go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But going back,
I mean, I had a police officer ask me if I was protesting. I went, "Me, mate, I'm walking down the street." Because to protest is actually a particular legal position that you put yourself in if you answer yes to that question.
Yeah, you see, the thing is, they've also got to be very careful, because there are provisions under the European Convention on Human Rights, which gives you the right of freedom of expression, freedom to dissent, and freedom to do quite a lot of other things. And if the police decide they're going to try and stop you from doing that, they've got to be very careful, because they're a public authority under the Human Rights Act, and Section 6, subsection 1 states, "It is unlawful for a public authority to act in a way which is incompatible with a person's convention rights." Now, if a police officer does something that's unlawful, potentially they're breaching Section 26, but also the Chief Constable has executive liability for their unlawful acts. So you can sue the Chief Constable under the provisions of the Human Rights Act.
And then take out a commercial lien on his property if he doesn't behave himself.
I don't know about commercial lien, but you can basically sue the butt off the Chief Constable, for allowing his officers or his civilian support staff, like PCSOs, or as I know them called, iPlods or plastic plods.
Yeah, if anybody's not got the app, iPlod, that is well worth getting, actually. I think you can get it for free now. There's 2 or 3 of them on there. And basically, on your phone, and you can get the full police list of all the sections and the acts and everything on your smartphone. iPlod.
Yeah. Well, iPlod came about as the iPod itself hasn't got much in the way of power, and neither are PCSOs, hence the name iPlod. So, yeah. They've not got an awful lot of power, even though they try to make out they do. But going back to bailiffs being on the doorstep, they have to be very, very careful by these enforcement agents, because if they go against what's written on that warrant or the conditions attached to it, their legal protection goes flying straight out the window, and they are not acting then as a bailiff. They're acting as a private individual who is trying their luck to try and extort money out of a person. They're very real danger of being arrested for attempted blackmail.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't seem to realise this, and if they did, I think they would exercise a little bit more care. But they think they can get away with it. No, they can't. You one savvy copper or one savvy member of the public, and that's it.
I've got a couple of questions in the chat room, Mike. Unique Lee has put a question in. Does Aid or his guest know where this £1 trust fee comes from when it comes to transferring title of a house or a business or a council house? Any ideas where this £1 trust fund originates from?
No idea at all.
Me neither.
No.
Me neither.
I know there have been some cases where some very corrupt local councillors have been selling property to their mates. Hold on. Excuse me.
It's all right. It's not as bad as a couple of weeks ago when we got Pippa King and somebody came to her front door at the time while we were live doing a show. A couple of other things in the chat room, just while Mike's disappeared for a minute. Unique Lease posted Poundland derelict houses in Liverpool to be sold for just £1. I think I actually saw that one. That was in the Telegraph. That's right. Most of the councils have a code of or constitution of codes they must adhere to, which they don't. Well, we know that anyway. Like honesty, trustworthiness, integrity, all the things they don't employ. Unique Lease put that word in, malfeasance.
Yeah, malfeasance, there's got to be it's a little bit more than misfeasance.
Right, okay.
There's got to be malicious intent involved with malfeasance. It's kind of like a sort of, it's worse than misfeasance, but not as bad as misconduct in public office.
So you choose any two or three and we'll get there in the end, eh?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I've covered all these things in the chat room so far. You've done section 26. Do look at the Contempt of Courts Act too, when you can use recording in a court. I had a funny reaction to using that act. Oh, here we go. That's a good one from Kevin Mark, actually. You must say a peaceful gathering rather than a protest. I guess that's with reference to a peaceful gathering rather than a protest. But when I got asked, I was just walking down the street, just wondering what was going on, officer.
Yeah, I mean, doing that, I mean, they are pushing it.
What, just getting back to the mortgages and all that corrupt business that's going on, and it is a corrupt business. What success or even little tiny victories have you had, Mike? Because for me, one reason why I do this is for those little victories, because the more little victories we all have, no matter how small, it pushes their boundary back. And
there's one in the last few months. Somebody's been trying to get information out of a civil enforcement firm, and they just kept blanking them. So we found a very interesting provision under the Civil Procedures Act, which allows people to actually serve a notice on a High Court enforcement officer or an enforcement agent, requiring them to provide certain information within 7 days. If they don't, you can apply to the court for an order. The same provision, and that was done, and the HCO and also an EA were served with it. Well, they decided, it doesn't apply to them. Well, it does, which is why they're in court very soon.
I've just had a message from my mate Jason Holmes. Thanks for listening, Jason. He's come up with an answer for the pound thing. The pound thing is a deed store. You pay the bank to store your deeds. It means you always have £1 outstanding on your mortgage. That's quite interesting.
I wouldn't advise you lodge it with the bank, because we know what banks are like.
Yep, me too. I mean, what I've always said is when you register anything, you give up legal title to it. So your property is registered with the land registry, and then you've got your deeds with the bank. Who do you think really owns your house? Well, it ain't you, because you registered it in one hand and then you gave the bank the deeds in the other.
No, there is a sort of a exemption to that, because if you've lodged that with the bank for safekeeping, and it's on that understanding, and they then try to purport themselves to be the owners of the deeds, that's criminal conspiracy to defraud. They're going to get 10 years for that. Especially if there's two of the bank staff decide to collude to pull that stunt. No, it's not as easy as that. You see, the thing is, if they were to say, "Oh well, we own it," and they're waving this deed about, no, that could well be a criminal offence. That could be fraud.
Mm-hmm.
They think they can get away with it. They think, "Oh, we're a bank, we're untouchable." They're not untouchable. The bank itself has got certain exemptions, but the bank staff themselves have absolutely no indemnity or immunity from prosecution whatsoever. They do not seem to realise this. They are not immune from prosecution. They sit in these little ivory towers in the city of London and Canary Wharf thinking, oh, we can't be touched. Our little friends in our bought and paid for politicians will get us out. No, they won't, because if the bought and paid for politicians turn on them, they have it. But there's nothing to stop the police, like the Serious Fraud Office, or the courts from dealing with them, because they are not above the law, even though they like to think they are.
I've heard of a couple of cases where people have taken their own property and turned it into an estate, just like the rich people do, with their 1,000 herd of deer and, the big stately home and all. You can actually turn your own house into an estate where it's then in trust.
Oh, yeah, property trust is
in fact, who's the comedian that did it? Bill Bailey. He's a very switched on guy. And he actually got, I can't remember which newspaper it was, but he'd got, he basically put an article out there saying that that's what he'd done and was encouraging other people to do it as well. Yeah,
it does. It seems to stop these asset strippers getting at it.
Right.
I did come across a case where a family who had quite a bit of land and very expensive homes, what they did is they set up a charity to sort of, it did prove to be a very sort of clumsy tax avoidance scam. It was something family charity, and they only gave about £43,000 out in about 10 or 20 years, and they scammed about £430 million.
That's about the right ratio for a normal charity.
Not for them, because they'd only paid a small amount out. Well, the Inland Revenue, as they now call Revenue and Customs, found out, and they decided to investigate. They got a huge tax bill.
I bet.
Because they were buying expensive cars like Mercedes, Lamborghinis. Those all got seized. So did the house out of the estate. Yeah, they all and most of the family got detained at Her Majesty's pleasure for tax avoidance and for obtaining money by deception, and fraud by false representation.
We did have a question which we've covered a little bit, but this actually came to us before the show went live tonight. And somebody said that they were having trouble with Marston's bailiffs, basically saying, we're coming into your house and we're going to empty it and we're going to put all the contents in our van and we're going to drive away. And the question was, can they do that? Now,
it depends on what it's for.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we haven't really got enough information to give an answer on. But, Mike, if you can come at it from a couple of different angles, that'd be good.
Okay, right. Just before I say that, if you are going to ask a question like that, guys, please give as much details as you can, because it helps Lady Eight myself. Yeah. Very generally speaking, if a bailiff comes to your door waving a bit of paper, whether it's for council tax or it's for a decriminalised parking ticket, which is known as a penalty charge notice, they've got no right of entry whatsoever unless you leave the door up and they just walk in, or it's unlocked, so they open the door and then walk in that way.
Got to get peaceable entry.
It's got to be peaceable. If they try to bully, if they try to use intimidation or they push you out of the way, that's assault. There is case law that says you can give them a damn good hard slap and push them straight back out of the door. What the buggers do is they immediately get on the phone crying to the police, "Oh, I've been assaulted."
Which is exactly what happened to me. Yeah.
I saw one on YouTube. There's this bloody bailiff screaming like a girl, "Please, I'm being assaulted." I'm thinking, you hello. You bloody pushed your way in, and now you're getting a taste of your own medicine. You're screaming like a bloody girl. No, going back to the question, if it's for PCN or for council tax, they've got no right of entry at all. The police cannot come to the door with the bailiff and say you've got to let him in or we'll arrest you. If they do that, they are committing an offence themselves. Because the bailiff has no right to enter. Some have tried to say they're High Court enforcement officers to try and get the police on side. Not on, because High Court do not cover anything like PCNs or council tax. The only time they can force their way in is if it's an unpaid magistrate's court fine. However, if the person whose house they've gone to is not the debtor. They've got no right to go in there, and they've also got no right to seize anything, because those HMCTS warrants are very specific. Have got very specific conditions, and one of those is you only take property goods belonging to the debtor, and you must not take any goods belonging to a third party. The moment you go against those conditions, that's it. That warrant isn't worth the paper it's written on.
So if they came into my home and I said, look, everything in here, I live in rented accommodation and it's furnished, so none of this belongs to me.
Well, one thing they'll try is, where's the receipts? Don't be so bloody silly. Get your slinger up, mate.
Yeah.
And just push them out the door. There have been cases where they've lied, and the police stupidly have handcuffed the person, just let the bailiff rummage. That's then gone to a complaint. The bailiff's been taken to court, and what normally happens is the police sort of go, right, we need to sort this out, and the civil enforcement company, they're trying to cover it up because the bailiff has gone and done something pretty bad. And normally it's, right, well, if we pay you damages, will you shut up and not go any further with this? Because if the bailiff was taken to court and you get a half decent charge, they could well say, well, then you just show me you're not fit to be a bailiff, I'm taking your certificate away from you.
And I believe that it would only take a couple of examples like that for these guys who, I mean, they're caught up in the system just like the rest of us.
Their favourite aid is to say that they're being obstructed.
Yeah.
They're not being obstructed. They've got to have actually lawfully seized goods before they can say they're being obstructed. Magistrates' court fines or compensation orders from the Crown Courts or the Magistrates' Courts, yes, they can force their way in, but they have to use before they can do that, you have to be at home, you must be refusing to answer the door. The only way they can get in is to use a locksmith. They're not allowed to just push you out of the way, assault you, or commit any other, use any form of violence. The moment they use violence, that's it.
Right, so they can't use the big red key.
They cannot. No, if the police use the big red key, like I saw them using on YouTube, and I actually know the guy who was with the debtor. That's totally illegal. They are not allowed to do that. Not allowed to up the likes of British Gas. No, they mustn't do that. It's a civil matter. The mistake they make is they see if the magistrate's court has issued it, it's only for safety reasons, and the fact is no. I can see a lot of coppers starting to lose their jobs very soon if they carry on doing that.
Yeah.
But I think they are learning very, very quickly, because I think Kevin Mark is he's doing a lot to educate them.
Yeah, well, you and I have got a mutual friend who had a situation similar to that, and that is being investigated and proceeded with as we speak, so we're not going to mention anything more about it.
We can't, because obviously because it's sub judice.
Yeah. A couple of things in the chat room, so we are sort of flitting about between subjects here, but so bear with us. And I'm reading this, and I haven't read it yet, so if I get any of this wrong, anybody listening, then please forgive me. Unique Lee, Section 9 of the Contempt of Court Act 1981, use of tape recorders. Subject to subsection 4 below, it is a contempt of court to use in court or bring into court for use any tape recorder or other instrument for recording sound, except with the leave of the court.
That's right, yeah. Well, I've got Blackstone Statutes on Public Law and Human Rights 2016-2017 here. Yeah, that's exactly what it says here, so I don't know if you... Lee has got the same book as well.
The other one that he's put is to publish a recording of legal proceedings made by means of any such instrument or any recording delivered directly or indirectly from it by playing it in the hearing of the public or any section of the public, or to dispose of it or any recording so derived with a view to such publication, and C, to use any such recording in contravention of any conditions of leave granted under paragraph A. Bloody hell.
Yeah, that subsection 1 of paragraph 9. Subsection 1 of section 9 of the Contempt of Court Act 1981. Yeah, it does say that. You have to be very, very careful. One thing I did see in a YouTube video is a chap was going in, he had his mobile phone, and there was a court official trying to stop him going into the courtroom. And told two police officers, strictly speaking, if that person is going in for a hearing in which they're taking part, and you try stopping them, that potentially is unlawful. You can say, look, you can't use that in there.
Yeah.
You cannot physically stop them from going in there, because that is an immediate breach of their article, their right to a fair hearing under Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights, and it's an automatic breach of Section 6, subsection 1 of the Human Rights Act 1998. So,
I know we said you were the encyclopedia, but I didn't realise you were as good as that, Mike.
I've got a very retentive memory, and especially for detail. But that's the way I was trained.
I can see that.
You're trained to look for detail, and you're trained to look for the things that are out of the ordinary. And it's funny, the first week of training, you go into a pub, you're kind of looking around like, and everybody, I mean, they stick out like a sore thumb training.
Yeah. Just to finish this a bit off with Unique Lee, in layman's terms, it's all based on the court's discretion.
That's right.
This was about the recording. I was refused and offered a pen and paper, even though it was a civil matter. Admittedly, not even a court of record, and when asked the reason why, the magistrate simply stated, because we don't want you to. Right. Well,
if the magistrates are going to be like that, I would say that's not good enough. They need to give a valid reason. Because we don't want you to is not a good enough reason. There must be. There's something in law called reasonable expectation, and one of those is you have the right to reasonably expect them to give you a straight answer. Why don't you want me to? Oh, and something like, oh, because we don't want you to. The answer is, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. You must have a valid reason for me not wanting to. Would you please give that reason? I mean, if the legal advisor wants to start doing the impersonations of Matt Vesuvius in full blow, that's up to them. But the thing is, no, reasonable expectation kicks in. Yes, you have the right to reasonably expect them to give you a reasonable answer, not just come out with stock excuses like that.
I think the thing is, Mike, that for so many years, they've just had complete run of the rules and just been allowed to bend them, flout them, whatever. And now people are getting more and more savvy because people are losing more and more.
People are beginning to notice it. It's becoming more blatant.
That's right. And I think because of that, it's these little victories, even to the point of somebody like Unique Lee saying, why can't I? That in itself is a victory, because years ago, nobody would have even asked. They'd have just gone, oh, okay, I'll just sit here and be a good little boy then. Whereas now, people, doesn't matter what uniform somebody's wearing or what chair they're sat in or what oath they're sitting on or whatever, people are willing now to ask the question.
Well, it's like these litter enforcement officers, or as I call them, litter bullies. Yeah. Oh, you got to give me your name and address. Off.
Well, I actually had one. I'll just say this dead brief. A colleague and I used to car share on a Tuesday up to the office. Sadly, I have to go to the office for about 2 hours on a Tuesday. It's my least favourite day at the morning of the week. And always managed to park the car that we weren't going to use next to a really good sandwich shop so that when we came back, we could grab a nice sandwich for lunch. This we did, bought a sandwich, sat on the wall, ate the sandwich, nice warm sunny day, having a bit of a chat. And when I'd finished, there was a litter bin, and it was completely overflowing with rubbish. And both of us tossed our empty paper wrappers into the pile of rubbish. Then this little Gestapo guy gets out of his little white van, puts his little hat on, and he's stood there. And he said, can I have your name, please? And I went, what? Can I have your name? I went, no. He said, I'm from Rotherham Borough Council. I said, congratulations. He said, well, you've just thrown litter and I'm going to issue you a fine. And all I said to him was, am I being detained? And he said, I haven't got the power of detention. I went, absolutely right. See you later, mate. And the two of us got in the car and drove off. And my mate just looked at me and he said, what just happened? I went, well, I just gave him an egg sandwich to eat, really. Just like, fuck off.
Yeah, that's basically it. Is a polite way of telling them to Foxtrot Oscar, yeah.
Yeah. But just say to them, am I being detained? And they've got to say, I don't have the power of detention. See you later then, mate. Bye.
See, the other thing they're doing is they're operating on a maxim of guilty until proven innocent. Now, that's completely contrary to Article 6, because under paragraph 3 of Article 6, it says, there shall be a presumption of guilt, there shall be a presumption of innocence until guilt is proven according to law. And that means you are innocent. My answer to them is, well, what evidence have you got? Yeah, well, that's only an allegation. You haven't proven that yet.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've got to shut it. Anyway, you do that, mate. I'll do you for fraud. You can't. Oh, watch me.
Mike, before
I explained them Article 6, and they kind of got a puzzled look, and they just go,
because they haven't got a clue what it is.
Off.
They haven't got a clue. Yeah, they haven't got a clue what it is.
They're just one thing, but they're like, it's common purpose training through and through.
Yes, absolutely. I didn't. It normally doesn't take us about 50 minutes to say the two words common purpose, but it has tonight. I just want to look at what others we've got in the chat room, and again, we're sort of catching up on these here, so we might be swapping between subjects. But anyway, Kevin Mark, he says, fill in an EAC2 form with the county court. If it's not criminal, they cannot force entry. Period. If a bailiff goes before a judge and is found to be threatening, they will lose their licence. That's a nice one. Yeah, love that. Love sharing these little victories. They're the ones we need.
Yeah. With an EAC2, I will say, Aid, be very careful before you go filling in and filing an EAC2. Those are for the most serious misconduct by a bailiff, like using violence, resulting to misrepresentation of their powers and things like that. Just for kind of minor things, a judge is not. The trouble is now you can get a cost order made against you, and a lot of these bailiff firms will use barristers, and they'll say, "Oh, I want £10,000." Some judges will turn around and say, "Hold on a minute, this person is a litigant in person. You expect me to do that on your bike?"
Mm-hmm. I think the good thing is that because of things like Raconteurs News and all the other hundreds of thousands of people that are out there trying to share this stuff, people are more and more empowered. And there isn't just one answer to any of this. You know, there are lots of answers. What I do love about how you deal with things, Mike, is me personally and a lot of other people just try and stay the hell away from anything official. We just keep out of it.
Oh, with me, I'm like a matador with a red cape. I'm kind of whipping them with a red cape.
Yeah,
I'll bait them. I don't mind baiting them and saying, "Yeah, come on, bring it on."
That's it. Because what you do once you are actually in the tiger's cage, you know the stuff you can fight them with.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, well, I don't sort of prod the tiger. I just wait for the tiger to start roaring and then shove something straight in its mouth.
Right, let's just run through these last couple before we take a break. Louise, in Hebden Bridge, the Calderdale Council tried to sell a large piece of land in the centre of town for developments into flats and car park for £1. Someone leaked the information and the whole thing was stopped. Great. You know, another one, a little victory. We've heard other ones like this before, you know.
Right, I'll tell you why that was stopped, because it would have been illegal. Right.
Yes.
Any land that's owned by a local authority they are custodians of that land. It actually belongs to the community, and they are simply custodians. They have no right to go selling things like that. Really and truly, they should go to the local communities and say, "Look, we're going to sell this. Is there any objection, and how much?" If they follow the letter of the law, but they don't. What local authorities and council officers do is they think they're in charge and they can order people around. No, they can't. They're the servants. We're the masters.
Yeah.
We tell it. I mean, there was a councillor down in Plymouth. He was very much sort of for the people, and the council officers just to think they could do what they like. And he said, "Excuse me," he said, "let's get one thing straight." He said, "You council officer, me councillor, me elected representative, you do as you're damn well told." He said, "We set the policy, not you." There was a very nasty campaign against him.
I would think so as well.
He was a damn good councillor as well. A very good councillor.
Another one from Unique Lee. You don't have goods, you have property. And the debts are generated under a civil contract for goods and services under a yearly credit agreement. They can't take goods from your private dwelling. You'd have to accept two things to permit the process to kick in. Number one, you'd have to assent to the fact you have a commercial premises and not a private dwelling. And two, hang on a minute, I need to scroll this down a bit, sorry. And two, that you haven't got a yearly civil contract that's been constructed unlawfully.
Then he's got another bit. It goes on. It says, "I believe it's all constructed under the Consumer Credit Act." No, it isn't. Council tax comes under the Local Government Finance Act 1992. That's what gave rise to it, because they got rid of a community charge and replaced it with council tax, and that was where the Local Government Finance Act in. What actually regulates council tax is a statutory instrument called the Council Tax Administration and Enforcement Regulations 1992. Now, there is a procedure the councils have to follow, and if they don't, it can mean any attempt to get a liability order is going to be sort of questioned, and they're going to be told, well, sorry, you haven't followed the right procedures, come back and have another go at another day. I've seen this happening, where somebody said, no, I never received a reminder or a final reminder. They said, oh, we sent them out, and the answer is, well, can you prove you sent them out? Oh, well, they were sent out, it's on our system, that doesn't prove they were sent out. Can you prove from your mailroom records that they were actually sent out? Sorry, no.
Yep.
Refused.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of good stuff coming through on the chat room. Before we take a break, which is fast looming in about a minute, take a quick comfort break. I just want to read this one out from Louise. Don't stay away. Challenge the fuckers.
Oh, I love that. No, she's absolutely, Louise is absolutely right. Always challenge. If you're being fed a load of 24-karat bullshit, challenge it.
And you know, when people say to me, "Oh yes, but I don't know enough," I just say to them this: if all you remember to challenge with is it civil or criminal, and who are you?
Yeah.
If that's all you remember, and they're the only questions you continually ask, don't ever answer a question. Just say, "Who are you? Is it civil or criminal?" And just keep asking it. And that in itself, even if you know nothing about Section 26 or anything that we've discussed tonight or that we've ever heard on any other Raconteurs program, then, you know, if that's all you remember, just remember, who are you and is it civil or criminal?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, they don't bloody know. You know, I mean, like a speeding offence, it's supposed to be a criminal offence. Where's the injured party? Bring forward the injured party so I can make amends.
Yeah, it's a traffic offence. It's a regulation.
It's not a criminal act.
The trouble is with these so-called safety camera partnerships. I think they should call themselves scammer partnerships. They are. They're a scam. No, they are. I'm being serious. They are nothing more than a scam. The Department for Transport have kept very detailed statistics of accidents where these static cameras have been put up, and also there's another type. There's a sign that as you go towards it, there's a little sensor on the top. Mm-hmm. Calculates your speed. Your speed flashes up on the sign, so everybody can see what speed you're doing. And believe it or not, a lot of drivers, when they see, oh Christ, I'm doing over 30 miles an hour, and they bring their speed, it does make them bring their speed down. Yeah. Because two or three cars behind them can all say, oh, he's speeding. anybody who happens to be any pedestrian can say, oh, he's speeding. But with the Truvelos and the Gatso cameras, it's just a cash machine.
It's absolutely a cash machine. Now,
the Department for Transport, and they always piss on the safety camera lobbies parade every time. They found that when these Gatso cameras have been, and Trivolo and all the other names that give them, where they've been erected, the accident rate had gone up by 14% after they were put up.
Yeah.
But these illuminated flashing signs that tell you what speed you're doing, they've gone down by 14%. So the other thing that the Department for Transport like about those flashing signs, they only cost £5,000, and they can work off solar power. But these Gatso cameras, I mean, you're talking about probably about £100,000.
And then they've got to be loaded and.
Well, no, the newer ones that are coming on, they're digital, and they've got a direct link back to the second. But the thing is, I mean, I was speaking to somebody who got a job temporarily in one of them. She said it was more like watching a bloody casino game on the screen. She said it is that sort of bad. If you're doing it over 100 miles an hour, you're automatically taking the call. Yeah. But I mean, I'm looking at the case. I can't. Well, if they haven't issued the summons yet, but they're using a camera that is so old, and it's got such a bad record of reliability. They are just. I mean, they basically just drop themselves in it at every sort of term, misquoting law, saying, "Oh, it's this, that, and the other." The thing is over nearly 20 years old. It's old technology, and it bounces around. The newer ones that some forces are using, they're a lot more accurate. But this one particular camera, which is the LTI 2020 Ultralight 1000, it's got loads of information on the internet and on YouTube, which show it is a problem with it. It should never be allowed to be used.
Mike, we're going to take a short break. I just want to do a couple of things before we do. I just want to mention this from Louise. I caught a policeman throwing litter out of his window. I marched over and threw the offending rubbish through his window and told him in no uncertain terms what I thought of him. That for me is a little victory. Good for you, Louise. Fantastic.
For me, I would have said, is that a Battenberg Keiko or a skip-on wheel?
Right, I'm just going to very, very quickly run through Kevin Mark, his comments, and then we are going to take a break because I just want to say a few things before we do. All councils are companies. Go check it out on Companies House. That's right. Another one from Kevin Mark. Companies Finance Act Section 3 kills it all. Uniquely, that's the act to cite, but that's not quite true. Why we would go. Domestic, right, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break, short comfort break. We're going to play some music, and just before we came on air tonight, Andy Young, who's producing for me, asked me what music I'd like. Now, we've got a track coming up called Dick Jackson, and I chose this one for a reason. It's called I Got a Bomb. And the reason I chose this is the things that have been happening recently. Are they false flag? I don't know. Are people becoming radicalised because our government, along with the American government, are invading what they see as their home country? So they're getting back at us? Probably. I don't know, just putting it out there. But the one thing I do want to say is the stuff that's happened in London, the stuff that's happened in Manchester, even going back to 9/11 and 7/7 and whether you believe who did it or whatever. The only reason it affects you people is because you see it on the TV. You have to protect your own subconscious mind. It is all there to make you scared. And we don't need to be scared. So I've got all these great people in Manchester. I've had a lovely concert, raised some money for a damn good cause. That's what they want to do. That's absolutely fine. But the one thing I want to stress is it doesn't directly affect 99.9% of us. We can be sympathetic to it, but be careful not to get too wrapped up in it, because if you do, all of a sudden, you're the one who's scared. You're the one who then needs the police with the guns. You're the one who then needs more CCTV. Where do we draw the line? It's different for all of us. I'm just putting my thoughts out there, I guess. Anyway, without further ado, this is Dick Jackson and I Got a Bomb.
rocks. I got a bomb for the Muslims and Jews. I got a bomb for the Christians too. Got the ingredients here in my mind. Can't take it back and there ain't no rewind. I can make more of these anytime. Bring the beat back and I'll do the crime. I got a bomb, gonna use it on you. I got a bomb, gotta do what I do. I got a bomb, gonna use it on you. I got a bomb, gotta do what I do. I got a bomb, gonna drop it on the floor. I got a bomb and I'm gonna make more. I got a bomb and it's here in my track. I got a bomb, this is how I attack. Planet raping fuckers, you are only a few. I drop the bass cause this bomb is for you. I got a bomb, gonna use it on you. I got a bomb, gotta do what I do. I got a bomb for the TV transmitter. I got a bomb for the carbon emitter. Sing the song under tyranny's rule. You know what it means and they do too. Now the law says fighting fascism's wrong. They can suck on my fucking bomb. I got a bomb, gonna use it on you. I got a bomb, gotta do what I do. I got a bomb, gonna use it on you. I got a bomb, gotta do what I do.
I got a bomb for the Pope and the Queen. I got a bomb, make the president scream. I got a bomb, I'm gonna take it to the top. I got a bomb, you bet it fucking rocks. I got a bomb for the Muslims and Jews. I got a bomb for the Christians too. I got a bomb and it's here in my track. I got a bomb, this is how I attack.
I got a bomb, gonna use it on you. I got a bomb, gotta do what I do. I got a bomb for the Pope and the Queen. I got a bomb, make the president scream. I got a bomb, gonna take it to the top. I got a bomb, you bet it motherfucking rocks. I got a bomb, gonna drop it on the floor. I got a bomb and I'm gonna make more. I got a bomb and it's here in my track. I got a bomb, this is how I attack. Planet raping fuckers, you are only a few. I drop the bass cause this bomb is for you.
And welcome back to Raconteurs Too. I'm your host, Aid Hardy, and tonight my guest is Michael Ough. Just before we come back to you, Mike, it's always a bit weird around the bank holidays because I never know where I'm going to be. So I know recently we've had a few people tuning in to not hear a live show on the bank holiday weekends. Now we've got all of those out the way, we're going to get fully booked up, and I just want to spend a moment telling you about my guest for next week. Raconteurs Too has been working with refugees for the past 5 years in Aleppo, Syria. Barra was co-founder and chief executive officer of a charity kitchen that produced 30,000 meals a day for internally displaced people, in addition to other voluntary roles. In 2014, he travelled to the UK to do an MS at Exeter University. He then sought asylum and registered a charity called From Syria with Love, which I think sounds a bit like a great James Bond film. Anyway, raising funds and, more importantly, awareness about the refugee crisis, particularly the Syrian plight. He toured the UK, Germany, Paris with an eye-opening exhibition of artwork by Syrian children aged between 6 and 16 living in refugee camps. A presentation about the Syrian plight and a book, From Syria with Love. The book provides an invaluable insight into the lives of the children affected by the Syrian conflict, and Barrett has spoken to more than 5,000 people at over 50 venues today. Barra's my guest next week, and what I know about Syria and the history of Syria, you could write on the back of a stamp. So I've got my good friend Rob Halford, who's my nocturnal Australian friend. He's going to be joining us because his knowledge of the history of Syria is amazing. So that is definitely not to be missed. If you want to know what's happening in Syria, not what the BBC tell you is happening in Syria, then you want to be listening to Raconteurs Too next week, 7 till 9 on Monday. Because we've got Barra with us, and he's Syrian, and he came to live in the UK. He's lived that life. So if you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, then be listening next week. And that is one I'm absolutely looking forward to. So anyway, welcome back to my guest, Michael Ough, down in Plymouth. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
Before the break, we were flying through the chat. There's so much going on in the chat room tonight, mate. We've certainly poked some sticks at people, I think, with this one. So I'm just going to try and find out where we were. Oh dear! I think we've just about got through that lot. So if you have got any questions for Mike, Mike is known as the Walking Legal Encyclopedia. He's got a history in very much in police and military police. Medically retired, unfortunately, but earlier on, Mike, you told me that you'd also been employed, and part of that job was assessing people for disability equipment.
Yeah, so I worked in community transport for about 8.5 years. Attached to that, we had our the shop mobility that is getting in an increasing number of towns and cities. And
yep, we've got them here in Sheffield. Yep.
Yeah, well, we've got one in Plymouth. It's quite an old one, and I'd have to assess them for using scooters, power chairs, and other sort of vehicles they could use to get around it. What surprised me is the number of people in the age range. It was a wide age range. You could get children, and you could also get very elderly people, but you'd also get them in between. I mean, there was one when I was working there. She came in and she'd suffered a spiral fracture. She'd gone out dancing with her friends, had skyscraper heels, and she twisted on one leg. She didn't feel it at the time, but the next morning her ankle was up like a football. Went to A&E, at the local A&E department here in Plymouth, which is kind of up near what used to be the airport, and she had a spiral fracture. Her femur, well, not a femur, sorry, her tibia. It was like a sort of a helter-skelter line on it. But unfortunately, she had to have plates put in there to hold the bone together, and she came. Yeah, with a lot of shop mobility schemes, if you are temporarily disabled, you can use their services. A lot of them are charities, and they do rely on voluntary donations. So if you do use ones that are charities, whether it's temporarily or permanently, please bear that in mind. They do a grand job. I started with the one here in Plymouth as a volunteer, and I went to work with them part-time as a line manager, kind of a junior line manager. And I had to give up after about 8.5 years because my health took a turn for the worse. But it's quite rewarding. Yeah,
I mean, I know few people listening know me personally, and I had a couple of bad motorbike accidents, sort of 6 and 7 years ago. I had 2 about a year apart. And I wish I'd have been aware of shop mobility. But the one thing that I found a bit difficult to get my head round, I mean, I literally... I couldn't walk for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I approached the local council and said, look, my grown-up kids are good enough to sort of ferry me around. But when I get to the supermarket, or when I get to the doctors, or when I get to wherever, I'm really struggling. Do you run any kind of temporary disabled badge? And the answer is no.
No, they don't. I mean...
and that is something that I would love to see change, because I know 2 or 3 people that I was in hospital with, we kept in touch for a short while, and that would have really helped. But the other thing was, when I went to them and asked them that, none of them said, Oh, have you ever thought about contacting Shop Mobility? They might be able to help you in a different way. That was never offered to me.
No, some shop mobility schemes are also combined with community transport. Now, the one we've got in Plymouth, they've got a service called Dial-A-Ride, which is a minibus. It's got about 14 seats, and I think it's 2 wheelchair spaces in the back of the minibus. They can book that in advance, and that can take them around to shops. It can take them to. But there's also quite a few who have got what they call community cars, like a social car sharing scheme.
Is that the Dial-A-Ride? Is it?
Yeah. Well, I just call it, the one down here is called Dial-A-Ride, but that is like a minibus that goes round.
Right.
They got them in Belgium. There they call them bell buses. It's for people who've got disabilities, or they can't use public transport, or they're in out of the way areas where there is no regular bus service, which is how community transport operates in this country. Over in Belgium, the state transport provider, Deline, they operate them. In this country, it's operated by third sector operators like local shop mobility scheme. But the other thing that, besides Dial-A-Ride, is something called Community Car, which is the social car sharing scheme. Now, those are volunteers.
Right.
They got their own cars. A lot of them are retired, and some are retired coppers, some are retired businessmen, some are even they've worked all their lives and they're just looking for something to do in retirement instead of pension, and being a prime candidate for dementia. So yeah, they do that. I mean, there's one I think at the local my local one. He's a retired fireman, and he loves it.
Yeah, great.
It is. I mean, this is the sort of thing you get. But no, they give up a few hours a week. They get paid for the a contribution towards the cost of the petrol, the insurance, and things like that. And yeah, it can take people to dental appointments, doctor's appointments. All they need, all the local community transport office need is A, that you register with them, B, that you give them the time of your appointment, and they'll say, right, okay, if it's say 6 miles away, they'll say, right, okay, we'll pick up a half hour before to make sure we can get you there in time. If it's they'll say, well, we'll pick up 20 minutes before your appointment time, just in case there's a hold up on the way, so they can get you there in time for your appointment. And then, as long as you can give them a rough idea of how long the appointment's going to be, they'll say, right, okay, we'll pick you up, say, that time. But if they say, well, we can't quite pick you up at that time, but back 1 hour after that, and you don't pay the driver, you get an invoice at the end of the month, and you pay it then.
So, I mean, it sounds like a great scheme.
It is. Now, with the shop mobility side, which is scooters and wheelchairs, I mean, when I was working in it, you used to get people come in who had injured themselves in accidents, but also we used to get a lot of people in who'd had hip and knee replacements. And they used that until they were well enough to walk around, and we didn't see them. There was one old lady I will always remember. She came, her daughter brought her in, and I had to assess her just to make sure she could use it safely. We didn't want her kind of mowing down every pedestrian in the city centre. And she was able to handle it. She was a bit nervous. Off she went. 2 hours later, she came back. You wouldn't have thought it was the same person. She was laughing. She was confident. She came in. She said, "Do you know, that's the first time I've been around the shops in 2 years." She said, "Can I come again?" We said, "Yes, sure you can."
Wow.
I felt so pleased that had changed her life for the better. That's one of the times in having worked in that field where you feel, yeah, you've made a positive contribution to that and changed that person's quality, given them a better quality life than they had before.
I mean, if we just go back to when you first joined the police, if you're anything like my brother, who was a police officer for 30 odd years, and his wife, they joined the police for exactly that reason, because they wanted to make a positive difference to people's lives.
Yeah, that's the reason I joined.
And actually what they ended up doing was counting the amount of shifts they'd got till they retired, because they were bloody sick of the system.
Yeah, I mean, the Met has an inherent problem with corruption, which Sir Robert Mark tried to stop, and then Sir Kenneth Newman tried to stop. I mean, when he found there was there was a Masonic lodge which numbered sort of very senior police officers and very high profile criminals. Yes, you can imagine his reaction.
Yeah, I bet.
Yes, make your choice out of the police service or the Freemasons.
Yeah, or common purpose, or both, or
Purpose is just a common purpose, I would say. I would love to. Well, I'm going to say it. There should be an arrest warrant put out for Julia Middleton.
Yes.
She has been going into the cabinet office. She is not elected. She has been trying to dictate government policy. And my view is she should be arrested and charged with sedition.
I think the thing with common purpose, it's all about leading beyond authority, and that's basically what the whole thing is. And it's a bit like the bailiff pushing things further, the police pushing things further, the magistrates pushing things further, the courts in general pushing things further. And the only people that lose out on this is us. Mm. And that's why these little victories, they're all little victories.
You see, with common purpose, you can all. I mean, when we were speaking the other day, you can always tell them they come out with absolute total drivel. Or the other thing they'll do is when they realise that you've caught them out, they'll immediately start. Oh, you're threatening me. No, I'm just asking you a question. You're very confrontational. Yeah, you're a complete idiot. So what?
Yeah. I mean, what I've found with common purpose graduates is they can say a complete paragraph, but not actually say anything. The words they use don't mean anything. It's just words that mean nothing. And I went to a social gathering with my ex. It was a bonfire party, and the chap sort of sidled up to me with his glass of mulled wine. I'd got a glass of bourbon, but he'd got his mulled wine. And he started to say all this rubbish that didn't mean anything. And I just looked at him and I said, yeah, we've all got a common purpose, haven't we? He went green, spat his drink back into his glass and walked off.
Yeah, green and purple are their favourite colours.
Yeah.
But when they come out with that psychobabble, I have got a somewhat wicked sense of humour. I'll kind of turn to them and say, are you on something? Is it legal? And can I have some?
Yeah, they just talk complete twaddle. Anyway, let's just read a couple more comments from the chat room, and it's really good to see the chat room so busy tonight. Thanks, guys. This one's good. Anon 7305, whoever you are. Hello, Anon. I had a funny one last week. I had the manager from a credit union admit he breached the Data Protection Act. Got it on audio too. Excellent. For anybody who's wondering how you record a call, I'm not particularly techie savvy. However, my good friend Andy Young pointed me towards a fabulous little app that you can get running on an iPhone or on Android, and it's simply called Call Recorder. It's free. And if you go on the iStore or the Apple Store or the Thingy Store or whatever they're called, it's a yellow box with a black telephone in it. It's free. You just download it onto your phone, tell it to start recording, and basically every time you have a conversation, then it records the call. So if you just happen to be involved in a conversation with somebody who says something they really, really shouldn't, you've automatically got a recording of it. So I don't know if that helps anybody, but it's one there in the pot. That one
that says admitted breaching data protection. There is a law coming in where any breaches of data protection at the moment it's voluntary to report it to the ICO. It will now become mandatory. If you breach data protection and you're a data controller, you will now be obliged.
So you've got to grass yourself up, basically.
You've got to grass yourself. If there has been a breach of data protection, it will now be mandatory. It's not in yet, but it is coming in.
Good.
All breaches of data protection must now will very shortly have to be reported to the Information Commissioner's Office. If you don't, you are committing an offence.
Wow, that's good news. Another one, Louise.
It's long overdue.
Yeah, another one from Louise. Community car schemes are great. Some will wait with you. That's a point. Yeah, I've heard of that one before as well.
Yeah, they will if they've got spare time. Yeah, they will.
Yeah. I know some of the hospital drivers, their private cars run on the same sort of scheme, aren't they?
Yeah, some in some areas it's run by the ambulance service. In other areas it's run by down here it's run by it's called TAPS. It's run from Truro. Oh, it's an absolute nightmare because trying to get hold of them is unbelievable.
Yeah. A good one from Scribble. Common purpose has more authority than the government. Yeah. Well, if anybody who knows me, I mean, I just think the government's a fictitious thing that exists only in the minds of idiots. But, you know, I just don't believe in government. And if anybody's wondering what I'll be doing on Thursday, absolutely nothing. And the sign on my door right now says, none of the above. Don't vote for anybody. It only encourages them.
Yeah, I was. Where was I this morning? I was in a cabin. There was the Labour candidate was kind of pressing palms, and I had my postal vote ready to close. And they saw that. Oh, who are you voting for? I said, can I just remind you of the provisions of the Representation of the People's Act? Oh, bloody hell!
Yeah, I mean, I just happened to be. I was in the garden on. Can't remember what day it was. I wouldn't have been. I was washing my motorbike. I wouldn't have been gardening. That's not me. And they're coming around with the leaflets and everything. And a woman walked up my drive just as I happened to look up at me bucket of soapy water. And she said, "Oh, I've got a leaflet for you." I said, "What is it? Is it political?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, just chuck it in the purple bin with the rest."
I think the best one I saw was a meme on the, or was a photograph on the internet. It had a picture of Kermit the Frog on it. It said, "Vote Mother because you'll vote for one anyway." Yeah. I
mean, if anybody believes that, voting really works, well, just look at the past 200 or 300 years worth of history. That's all you got to do. It doesn't do any good at all. You don't have a choice. There isn't one. Let's just have a look at here we go. I'm just looking down the chat room, but it does move quick. I think we've just about covered them all. Yeah, I think we've just about covered them all. So this new law that's coming in, Mike, I mean, when I was involved in financial services, a lot of the Data Protection Act came in. And, of course, everybody who holds information has to have an officer in charge of that. So,
Controller.
Yeah, with this new law, if somebody works for a company, is it up to them to report to their senior and then the senior to report it? Or
the data controller, when they got the notification, when they register with the Information Commissioner's Office, is what's called a notification. And there's normally a nominated officer who takes responsibility for data protection, and that's the point of contact that the ICO have with that particular company or organisation or whatever. But this new law is not yet in force. I'm not quite sure when it does come. I know it's within the next sort of few months.
So they're doing the sort of white paper rubbish and yeah.
Well, it's due to come into force. That means it's probably been given an assent. It's just waiting to come into force because sometimes something can come in. I mean, like the Human Rights Act, it was actually it received a royal assent in 1998, but it didn't come into force until 2000. So yeah, you can get. I mean, it's also like the Section 26 of the Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015. It was actually received the royal assent. I think it was in February or March of 2015, and that provision didn't actually come into force until the 13th of April that year. Unfortunately for some coppers who were involved in illegal evictions, it was after the 13th of April 2015. Oops.
Yeah. It's one of those weird ones, isn't it? And I mean, when you're looking at laws, and it is an absolute minefield because you find one contradicts the other. It's a bit like the Bible.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. You do find some laws will contradict each other, but also you could, what is interesting sometimes is you look at one law and you think, hold on, I'm going to go in behind that and see and you start finding other laws start coming into the equation as well. By the time you finish, you may have about half a dozen different pieces of legislation, and you've got some dickheads trying to say, Oh, well, hold on a minute, mate. I've got 6 laws all saying the same. And, well, if you do that, you're breaching that. And if you do that, you're breaching that. And if you do that, you're breaching that. Right, do you want to argue with me? Ooh. They just shut it away.
I think we'd got Paul Webster on Webby, if you're listening, Webby, hi, mate. And he pointed out that when he was going through his huge learning curve that we all go through, somebody sent him a link to some laws and everything for a case he was dealing with. And he kept reading down it and reading down it. And he went, none of this is relevant. So he rung him up, ranting and raving, saying, it's not relevant. And he just said, how far have you got? He said, Section 4. He said, well, read Section 5 then. And basically, everything contradicted everything else. And then Section 5 just explained it all. And actually, the 4 sections before it were completely bloody irrelevant.
Oh, I caught somebody, when was it, last week. They were trying to quote case law, and they quoted one particular paragraph from the approved judgment. And when I looked at the approved judgment, I went, what relevance has this got to this particular case? This has got nothing to do with it. And then I looked at the next one, and I went, hold on a minute. I said, you've just lied to me. You've just attempted to mislead me, because this can be challenged. And the said person threw a hissy fit and started throwing their toys out of the pram. So, very silly thing for them to do, because what they've probably done is gone and completely compromised their case.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Human Rights Act, and I believe, my belief is this: I've got the right to walk down my street backwards, wearing my trousers the wrong way, my jumper inside out, my hat back to front, wearing double denim, and a peacock sat on my shoulder. Now, nobody wrote that down, but I've got thousands and thousands of rights that I haven't even thought about yet. And it doesn't need a Human Rights Act to give me those. They are mine.
What?
However, sometimes if you are stuck in a legal position that you don't want to be in, and you can use their system against them, that's the time to use it.
So the Human Rights Act, what it does in a nutshell is, before that came into force, we had to go all the way to Strasbourg to enforce our human rights. Now we don't have to do that. You can go to your local county court and do it.
Yeah.
Or you can go to the High Court, or you can go to the Supreme Court. But if you're going to go to Strasbourg now, you have to go to the County Court first, then the High Court, then the Court of Appeal, and then the Supreme Court. And invariably, it normally gets sorted out before it even gets as far as the High Court or even the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court is basically the European Court of Human Rights in this country.
Yeah.
But the European Court of Human Rights itself in Strasbourg, there's two parts to it. You've got the plenary court, which is the main court. You've got about 12 judges from across the 52 signatories to the convention. They sit in there, and then you've got a grand chamber, which is the sort of appeal section, and you've got about between 7 and 9 judges sitting in there. They're more senior judges. If they can't make their mind up, it goes to the Committee of Ministers who make up the Council. No, this is the way it works. The Council of Europe stands for 3 things: rule of law, human rights, and democracy. Whereas the European Commission, they're more political and trade. One's political, the other one is more concerned with human rights and democracy and rule of law.
I spent a very, very short time, thankfully, in a very beautiful country called Germany. Only 4 days, and I was working out there. And what I found in Germany was, unless there's a sign up saying you can do something, you can't. Unless there's a sign up saying you can do it, you can't. Now, this is why I would never get on living in Germany, because my view is, if I'm not hurting anybody, then I can do what I want. You know, I'm not an evil guy. I'm not going to go and hurt anybody. That's why I only need common law. You know, do no harm. That's it. I don't need any more. There are people who live not far from me and not far from everybody who do need some laws, but the laws that I think we need don't need your name. because that's a contract. The laws that we need are the ones where the copper doesn't need to know your name. He just throws you in the back of a van because you have been a very naughty boy, because you've either caused death, harm, loss, or a breach of the peace. It covers everything. Yeah. Common law.
What the Human Rights Act does is, it, as well as kind of saving us from having to traipse all the way to Strasbourg, it also gives us the means to hold public authorities to account, and also to put them back in their box when they kind of overstep the mark. That's what it gives us the power to do. Now, a lot of public servants don't like it. Common hate it with a vengeance. You say to them, you start quoting them the Human Rights Act and the European Convention, their stock answer is, "Oh, that doesn't apply to us." And then,
do you know? I've just read a comment. Mike, and you took the words right out of Louise's mouth.
Yeah.
Louise said, "I've tried using the Human Rights Act and the council dismissed it as irrelevant. I used Britain versus SOS."
Secretary of State, yeah.
Okay.
Now, one thing that these local authorities need to be very, very aware of, if they start coming up with crap like that, it's going to turn and bite them on their backside so damn hard it's going to draw blood. Because every signatory country, what they call contracting parties, they are bound not only by their own domestic rules, case law that's arisen in their own domestic courts, but also the rulings of the European Court of Human Rights Plenary Court and the Grand Chamber, and also any decisions made by the Council of Ministers. So I don't know which council this was that Louise is talking about, but they do want to be very, very careful, because if they start doing that, and Louise takes into a local county court, and the court decides to make an order against that council to say that you shall do this or you will not do this, that is not going to look good on that council, because as soon as they've got a human rights order against them, that screams, this council is an abuser of human rights. This council has been found guilty of abusing its residents' human rights. That's not a good position to be in.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's why I think these little victories, like the ones that Louise is pointing out, are really important, because all the time it's pushing them back.
Oh, there was a major victory in the High Court in 2013, I think it was, but the actual judgment is dated 2014, AA versus London Borough of Southwark. Now, that is a very significant case law in housing cases. What happened was, AA was a Somalian. He was a Somalian who'd come to live here in this country as a refugee. He was given leave to stay indefinitely because his parents were murdered in Somalia because of the civil war there. And 5 housing officials in London Borough of Southwark illegally evicted him. And they destroyed all of his possessions, including photographs of his dead parents and his siblings who had been murdered as well. And he took them to court. Well, he went to the High Court, to the Queen's Bench Division. I think it was Mr. Justice Thornton. When he heard what had happened, these housing officers had even lied to an independent investigator who was a retired chief inspector of police.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, all of them were found guilty of misfeasance in public office. The amount of damages, I think he claimed £2.4 million. I think he got not far off that.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like leading beyond authority, that. Yeah, I wonder where that came from.
Exactly. They thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
Because a possession order under the Housing Act lasts for 6 years. It's got a lifespan of 6 years. Once that 6 years has gone up, you cannot use that unless you go back to the court and ask permission, or you have to start all over again. So, you get this, we can get away with it. It's just the common purpose mantra, we can do that, we can get away with it. We like to do it.
I think the good thing that I like about the direction that you come from, Mike, is that, there are a lot of people out there, including me, who think, don't need the Human Rights Act because I've got as many rights as I want and I'm not a harmful guy, so I'm going to be fine. But there does always come a point where once you find your feet in the sticky mud, if we can use their own system against them, like the Human Rights Act, then let's learn about it and let's go for it. And that's what's different to you with a lot of the guests that we get on, because you come from it from a point of view, all right, you're in this position, then now let's use this knowledge, their system, if you like, and take them to task over it.
Basically, do Aid is you turn the laws that they try to use against you on them.
Yeah.
It's like holding up. It's like how can I? It's like it's like you got somebody firing a laser at you.
Mm-hmm.
You hold up the mirror and it reflects the laser straight back at them.
Yeah.
It's kind of throwing it back at them, and they don't like it.
Sorry, Mike. Carry on.
But the Human Rights Act, that is a very powerful piece of legislation, and it does give us the tools and the weapons we need to keep authority in its place.
Mm.
They're supposed to be our servants, not our masters, and they tend to think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
And that's why they hate it. That's why common folk hate it so much. They've got this mentality. They've had their egos skewed, so they think, we're going to be leaders. They're not. They all think they're leaders. They're not. Now, I predict that in the next few years there is going to be an epidemic of people having nervous breakdowns because of the way that their egos are being twisted.
Yeah.
By the very dark NLP that common purpose uses on them.
I mean, anybody who says that, okay, I'm going to get into this. I was trying not to, but I can't not get into this. Voting. When you register your vote, you register your voice. When you register anything, you give up legal title to it. So when you register your vote, you basically throw it in the pot with everybody else's. And if 51% of the people who bothered to turn up to scratch their X in the box disagree with you, then nothing happens that you thought might happen anyway. So it's a pointless thing in the first place. Secondly, when has a politician ever done anything that was good for you anyway? Because there's 1,000 ways of dissecting the population: gay, straight, black, white, young, old, born in this country, not born in this country. So at some point you are going to be in the minority, and all any politician will do is promise to tax somebody else more than they're going to tax you so that you vote for them. Well, why don't we just tell them all to piss off? Why do we need to argue about who's going to be sat on a throne or at number 10? Let's just not have a bloody throne. If you think you need a leader, you don't. I know where I'm going. I know exactly where I'm going when I wake up tomorrow. I don't know about a week's time or a year's time, but I know where I'm going tomorrow. I certainly don't need a leader, not one as fucking stupid as Theresa May.
Oh, or as I call her, Madam Mim May. She looks dead. She's a dead ringer for Madam Mim on Disney's Cinderella. You put them together, they look. You're thinking separated at birth.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my little rant over. Let's. I just want to mention a couple of things. Here we go. Our very own Freeman Jack is going to be on with Chuck O'Celli at 1 a.m. And I know it's 1 a.m. and we do need to be a bit nocturnal. They're going to be talking about the recent London Bridge attack, and I'm going to put inverted commas around that. It happened just a few minutes from Jack's house. So if you want to know a bit more of an inside story, not what the BBC will tell you, then have a listen to Chuck O'Celli with our very own Freeman Jack. He's going to be talking about London. That's at 1 a.m. So, Mike, we're covering so many different subjects, and I just want to just have a quick check through the chat, see what we've missed, because I know I've missed some. Here we go. Oh, Louise, I read this one earlier. I thought this was great. This is another one on the voting. Here we go. During the Iraq War, my friend and I ran a campaign when the local elections were on, and we spent weeks trudging around urging people to spoil their votes. There was more spoilt votes, in our area than the whole of the rest of the country put together. We got a letter from Tony Blair accusing of us undermining the course of democracy. Fantastic!
God, what a bloody hypocrite. Tony Blair.
Yeah, Tony Blair.
Them of undermining
anybody of anything.
How did he do?
Yeah,
the thing is, I don't know whether you've noticed this, Aid, in the last few elections there has been an increase in electoral fraud. There was electoral fraud with the devolution vote for Scotland. They found that it was going on with the Brexit vote, and there was also the last general election. There was electoral fraud going on.
Yeah.
Because in one place the security was very, 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 very high because of obviously the previous one, and they were, as the ballot boxes were being taken out to the polling stations, they were checking them out. They had a numbered seal on them. They didn't use these sort of bits of ribbon or lead seals. They used these plastic seals with a serial number on them, and they were using those instead. So they had a sort of a paper trail, and they got taken to the counting place, which in Plymouth is normally the Guildhall, and they had to be checked back in. Now, if there was any query about a ballot paper at the polling station, they closed the polling station, and the presiding officer and his two assistants would then deal with it together. They'd actually put the shutter across on the ballot box, which was a good idea. At one stage, there were a number of ballot boxes which should have been brought in after 10 o'clock were missing. They sent the police straight out to these places, and they found that the ballot box was still in the polling station. So the police got hold of the key holder and said, right, open up. Oh, I don't want to get out. Get your ass down here now, or we'll come down and bloody get you. And then they took the ballot box into the counting house, and it was all counted.
You see, we've had guests on, I think it was when I sat in for Jason a few weeks ago. Andy, just remind me of the chap's name in Hull.
It was Colin Worrell, mate.
That's it, Colin Worrell. And he said,
right.
Yeah, Colin had got not that many votes, but it took him about 4 hours to count them. He said, I could have counted him in 10 minutes. You know, it's definitely corrupt. But the big issue that I have is simply this. Has any form of politics worked in the past few hundred years? No. Simply because the people who are supposedly in charge, well, that says it all. They're just going to be in charge of feathering their own nest. And if you think you've got a choice, just look at the past 200 years. You don't. I'll give you a great example. Brexit. If everybody had turned out and everybody had voted to come out of Europe, then our government go all around the world, make all these trade deals with all these different countries, and we are one step closer to a one world government. If everybody voted to stay in Europe, then we would be one stage closer to one world government. So it doesn't matter what the vote is, the path is the same. The destination is identical. And they flower it up to be anything that they think you might just vote for them for, so that they can be in charge of getting you where you're going to go anyway.
You see,
so stop encouraging them, stop voting, and just don't. Because I guarantee one thing. The most furthest left and furthest right politicians have got much more in common with each other than I have with any of them. Anyway, another rant over.
Yeah, this TTIP that they tried to bring in try to tie us into, it is the biggest scam going. It basically gives firms, these massive corporations, the right to sue governments. I think it's not even a court that determines it. It's two solicitors, two corporate solicitors saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to pay." No, and it's all done behind closed doors, all done in secret, all done with lobbyists. My view is, if you can't do it out in the open, don't do it at all.
Yeah. I've just read a fantastic comment from Scribble. Theresa May, when they put teeth in her mouth, they ruined a good arsehole.
Now, one thing I will tell you about Theresa May, I don't know whether people have noticed it, her skin is very grey. It turns out she has type 1 diabetes. Now, when a diabetic's skin goes that funny grey colour, it's normally a sign that their kidneys are being compromised in some way. I wouldn't mind betting in the near future that Theresa May is forced to stand down because of her health, even with dialysis. Type 1 is the more serious of the two. And I would never be surprised to see her forced to stand down because of her health. Yeah,
and of course Jeremy Corbyn will then say, "Oh, I did that. I did that."
Well, she's a lizard, really.
That's Louise commenting. She's a lizard.
This Louise is coming out with some perlers. Yeah, Louise. No, I mean the last person they want really is Prime Minister Jeremy Hunt. I have heard him called something else, sounding like Hunt.
Yeah.
Which is probably a more well, I would but yeah, what he's done to the health service is disgusting. In the last 5 years, I've been rushed to hospital twice, and nearly died, and I have a debt of gratitude to South Western Ambulance Service and also the staff at Derrybrook Hospital here in Plymouth. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here talking to you now. And what they've done for me in the last few weeks, I thought I would be spending the rest of my life in a wheelchair. Thanks to two very talented young physiotherapists, I'm able to walk again.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. If Jeremy Hunt and GCHQ are listening to this, leave their health service alone and stop trying to flog it off to the Americans.
Well, the bait's already privatised anyway. And what I will definitely agree with you, Mike, is, when I had my motorbike accidents, the people at the sharp end, the people that screwed me back together, put my feet back on, filled in the holes in my legs and did all of that. But they don't do this because of the health service. They do it in spite of it.
That's
because
right.
The tools they've got to work with are getting less and less and less. And just like the coppers who joined the police force to do a good job for the people, then realised, fucking hell, what have we got ourselves into here? And a lot of the NHS staff are exactly the same, because they genuinely joined the NHS to do a good job because they were conscientious people, caring people, loving people, and find themselves basically with their hands tied behind the back, trying to write left-handed with a pen that's empty. I wouldn't be able to walk if it wasn't for those people, and I would be forever, ever grateful to them.
Yeah,
but they didn't do it with the help of the NHS. They did it in spite of the shite they'd got to work with.
That's right. I mean, I share that view as well, because the first time I got rushed in 2012. I didn't know this until they told me afterwards. I was leaking about 5 litres of blood into my digestive tract.
Oh, God.
And my heart, by the time I got into A&A, it was beating at 167 beats per minute.
Oh, that's just about ready to pop.
Apparently 180 plus is what they call, time to sort of get the Imodium ready.
Yeah, slow you down a bit, yeah.
Second time was about 3 years ago. My pancreas swelled to about twice its normal size, and so I got wheeled in, kind of struggling for breath and going in and out of consciousness, and
anything pancreas is kind of because that's one thing that it's really difficult to struggle with, to live without.
Well, they said to me, "Do you drink?" I said, "You must be joking. I can't take the bloody thing. They suspect I'm celiac." Well, yeah, they found out I was actually a celiac, because after that, that's when it really showed itself. It's what type I've got is pretty nasty. It's in about half an hour of eating anything with weight, I will be. It feels like my skin, my muscles, my throat, my eyes are on fire, and I've got pain in every joint in my body for up to an hour. So yeah.
Wow, Mike. In spite of all that, you've got a memory to behold, one which, and not only that, you're able to put it over in a way that hopefully people listening tonight will have learned, even if you just will learn one thing. And don't forget, this will be up on a podcast, so you can listen over as many times as you want. Mike, I'd love to finish on something positive. It might be something that happened 20 years ago. It might be something that happened last week. What can we finish on that's a positive?
Just trying to think.
A little victory.
There have been cases where I know what it was. I've got there's one of our local councillors here in Plymouth, a guy called John Tow. He's a fantastic bloke. He's a Labour councillor. One of my neighbours was being given a hard time by Ross and Roberts or Equitable bailiffs. He's got mental health problems, and it was affecting his mental health, and it was over council tax. And I went into the council with them, and they just would not pull the bailiffs off. So I got in touch with this counsellor, John Taylor. I don't know what he said to them, but within less than a week, it was sorted.
Brilliant.
And we sorted out the council tax, and the council are now leaving him alone.
Brilliant.
But thanks to that councillor, it was sorted for the best. And don't forget, with local councillors, the ones who are in it just for the party line, give them a white bird. The ones who are in it because they want to help people, they're the ones who really and truly are what I call elected representatives, and they do deserve your support.
Yeah, I think what you've shown us tonight, Mike, is that if you do find yourself in the system, and as much as we all try not to be, there are ways through it. And like you said, it's just like turning their own rules against them for your own benefit, and that sometimes is what we have to do, and we have to put ourselves in that mindset. There does come a point in whatever situation you're in where trying to bat things away doesn't happen, and these things do hit you. And if it does hit you, then at the end of the day, we need people like Michael Ough to show us the way. So on behalf of everybody listening, either live or on a podcast, Mike, I'd like to say thank you very much indeed. You have been amazing.
It's all right. You're welcome.
Absolutely fantastic. I just want to, Mike, if you can hang on after this, because I do want to have a quick chat when we go off air. I want to tell you a couple of things that are happening. Just remind you, 1 a.m., Chuck O'Celly on Autonomous Media is going to be joined by our very own Freeman Jack tonight. Freeman Jack lives just a few minutes away from where all the alleged happenings in London happened, and they're going to be discussing that at some length. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, 8 till 10, Andy and Jason Holmes with Raconteurs News. The guest tomorrow night is a guy called Jason Green, and Jason was actually at the Manchester concert when the bomb went off. So again, if you want to know about that, then if you want what's actually happened, then a good one to listen to tomorrow night. I'll be back live next Monday, 7 till 9, and don't forget my guest next Monday is a chap called Bara Kuja, Syrian, applied to be a refugee, applied for, I can't even read my own things, who's working with refugees and was providing 30,000 meals a day for displaced refugees out in Syria. So if you want to know what's really going on in Syria, listen to me next week. And I'll be joined by my co-host, just for 1 week only, Rob Halford, because his knowledge of Syria and the history of it is outstanding. So definitely one not to be missed. So loads going on Raconteurs News. In the meantime, you can listen to all the previous shows on raconteursnews.com on the podcast. Just follow the link to the podcast and have a click. If you've got something to share, then contact us at raconteursnews.com, and in the next few weeks it could be you joining me on Raconteurs Too, or Jason and Andy on Raconteurs News on a Tuesday night. Thanks to my producer tonight, Andy Young, who was amazing as always. Thanks to my amazing guest, Michael Ough, but most of all, thanks to everybody for listening. Thank you. Good night.
Fuck the police. Fuck the police. Fuck the police. Fuck the police.
I could be all spiritual and maybe even lyrical. I could spin a rhyme that you would think hysterical. With wit and a riff I could articulate exactly how it's possible to postulate. But please, they will fuck you up with ease if not held accountable for their deeds. Now don't imagine they're the good guys, please. Come on everybody, sing with me.
Fuck the police.
When they bust me for weed.
Fuck the police.
When they beat me up for no
Fuck the
need.
police.
When they're beating up
Fuck the
protesters.
police.
When they're rounding up
Fuck the
dissenters.
police.
For the crimes they
Fuck the
invented.
police.
For the people they
Fuck the
protected.
police.
When they're covering up
Fuck the
lies.
police.
When the government
Fuck the
spies.
police.
When they're reading my
Fuck the
mail.
police.
For the terrorist fairy
Fuck the
tales.
police.
When they're working as the arm of the state.
Fuck the police.
When they're racist and they're protecting hate.
Fuck the police.
When they're thugs and scum, they shoot you in the
Fuck the
face.
police.
And they target you just because of your
Fuck the
race.
police.
Anywhere they support a monarchy.
Fuck the police.
Anywhere everybody, sing with me.
Fuck the police. 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 Fuck the police.
When they bust me for weed,
Police.
when they beat me up for no need,
Police.
when they're beating up protesters,
Police.
when they're rounding up dissenters,
Police.
for the crimes they
Fuck the
invented,
police.
for the people they
Fuck the
protected,
police.
when they're covering up
Fuck the
lies,
police.
when the government spies,
Police.
when they're reading my
Fuck the
mail,
police.
for the terrorist fairy
the
tale, when they listen to my
Fuck
phone
the
call,
police.
when they fuck you up for no call,
Police.
when they beat me up for no need,
Police.
when they bust me for smoking weed,
Police.
when they're reading my mail like a government
Police.
spy, when they're lying scum and they're covering up
Police.
lies, when they're hassling and dissenters,
Police.
when they're locking up all protesters,
Police.
when they're working as the arm of the state,
Police.
when they're racist and they're protecting hate,
Police.
when they're thugs and scum they shoot you in the
Police.
face, when they target you just because of your race, anywhere they support a monarchy,
Police.
anywhere they presume you're guilty,
Police.
anywhere they prop up a tyranny, wherever they impose a rule, when the politicians use them as a tool.
Police.
I don't imagine that they're good guys, please.
Police.
Come on everybody, sing with me.
Fuck the police. Fuck the police.